Hi everyone, it's MrMostDaysOff from the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. I want to say thank you so much for tuning into our podcast and also let you know of 3 additional ways you can help out the show. First, you can find and buy our merchandise at tpublic.com/bestdarndiddly. You can also support our sponsors popthreads.com for all your other t-shirt needs and use our discount code Simpsons at checkout. And finally, you can find us on patreon.com. Thank you again so much for listening to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show, and please enjoy this week's podcast. Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by 2 dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as MrMostDaysOff, and today, we might as well be the most magical podcast on Earth, because we are talking about Itchy and Scratchy Land. And we've got a very special guest joining us, but first, let's introduce to you, your co-host with the most, Richie the WizKid. How you doing today, Rich?
I'm going to prove today that being introduced first is the worst, that's for sure, because next to our guest today, I've got no knowledge in this whatsoever. I've never even seen Itchy and Scratchy Land, which is a complete lie. I've seen it like 500 times. But I'm super excited for our guest. This is a fan favorite episode, and we have a very, very poignant guest on this, so I won't waste any more time. Let's throw it back to you, the man, the myth, the Ku Klux Klan. It is Miles.
Of course you went with that. Of course you did.
Or is it Ku Klux Klan? Did I fuck that up? Oh, well.
I like to think of myself as the disgruntled goat.
He had his moments.
Thank you. I did have my moments. Or I do have my moments, I should say.
Like that one right there.
So today, joining us, he's got a show that you can tune in to find out if he's a nerd or not. Spoiler alert, he totally is. He's the host of the Nerd or Not podcast, part of the Cretins Guild. It's Bob. How you doing today, Bob?
Woo! I'm doing great, guys. I am so incredibly happy to be here. I am a fan of your show to begin with, but I'm glad to be called a brother.
Brother, we are very excited to have you. And not only, exactly, brother.
Wait, did I just do a wrestling thing?
Yeah, you did.
No! You totally did.
Yeah, we got him. We got him.
So, Bob, let me tell you something, brother. We're not only excited to have you just because you're a Simpsons fan and we love talking to Simpsons fans, but you also happen to live in Orlando or outside Orlando, I can't remember which. You work for Mr. Black, which owns Universal Studios. You're a frequent attendee of one of my favorite places in the world, which is, in fact, Universal Studios, Simpsons Springfield Zone to be exact, and I also love the Harry Potter section of the park. Hell, I really just love the whole damn thing. You also frequent Disney, which is actually going to be a little bit more reflective of this episode. Of course, the Simpsons love to make fun of Disney, who now ironically owns them, which is all complicated and whatnot, but enough of that. Bob, tell us about yourself, tell us about your podcast, and tell us how you became a fan, or when you became a fan of The Simpsons.
Oh, you're not asking a lot now, are you? Yes, I am 1/3 of the trio. Myself, Corey, and Jay, we are the Cretins Guild, and, you know, we're just lifelong friends. We've known each other for, God, it feels like 30 years now, and eventually, we all just, you know, life got in the way. We grew up, we grew away from each other, but we missed each other's company, so we started having conversations, and we realized, you know what? We find these actually to be really funny conversations. We should start recording these and make a podcast out of it. So if you want to listen to a trio of 40-year-old nerds just talk about stuff in the past, talk about stuff right now, this is where you want to catch up to us. We love talking about movies, TV. We're really big into theme parks and tiki drinks. I know that's a strange combination, but that's the way we go.
What else are you supposed to drink when you're at the theme parks?
Well, depending on the park, you can, like, if you go to Epcot, you can do the drink around the world.
At Springfield at Universal, of course, you've got to have a Duff.
You have to have a Duff, which, yeah, it's a little overrated, but, you know, it's fine.
Do they have the German version, Doof?
Doof? That was Holland, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, I was actually there in October of 2015 was the last time I was there, and they had Dooftoberfest.
Dude, you're due for another visit then.
hopefully, knock on wood, I'm planning on visiting again in 2020, same time around October, because I also am a huge fan of Halloween Horror Nights. It's one of my favorite events of the year. And I feel like every 5 years is manageable from a affordability standpoint for the most part.
Fair enough.
And hopefully, if everything goes well this time, we're hoping to make it a meetup of sorts, have an open invite to anybody who listens to this show, wants to come and hang out with us at Universal Studios. Go and have a Duff beer, and hey, the first Duff's on you, second Duff is too. But we'd love to go and hang out and just meet up with a lot of cool people who love The Simpsons. And of course, we'll spend a lot of time in Springfield, but we're going to go all over that park and have a lot of fun.
I can't wait for that. I mean, I'm going to my first Halloween Horror Nights this year for the first time in, a while. Just because, the crowds are kind of like a turnoff. But, I, like yourself, I need to muscle through it and just punch that horse every once in a while.
They sell the fast passes for the Halloween Horror Nights now, and I've contemplated that in the past. But to be fair, I think part of the fun of a haunted house is that anticipation and that build-up as you wait in line, and I love scaring people. That shit cracks me up. So
just sweat it out.
Right, there's something about having that anticipation as you're waiting there with a big crowd of people, and you can hear the people in front of you screaming and all that good stuff that I think makes the event a little bit more fun, though some of those lines do get ridiculous, and there are times where I'm like, I don't really need this much anticipation to make it fun. But yeah, so let's talk about The Simpsons. When did you become a fan of the show?
Oh, goodness. I lived in one of those families in the 90s where The Simpsons weren't allowed on the TV.
They were too naughty for you, huh?
Yeah, they compared to some of the TV today, oh, Lord. Yeah, I wasn't. They told me, you know what, we don't want you watching this show. So then I went in the back room and I watched it where no one else could hear me. So yeah, I was watching a lot of these episodes live when they first hit back in the 90s, and I can actually remember this particular episode the first time watching it, and I was fortunate enough that I lived in the Fox affiliate where I lived would re-air The Simpsons about twice a day, every single day. So this is how any episode I missed, this is how I caught up. This was before Netflix, and, well, I guess it was out on VHS, but who's going to buy all those episodes?
Well,
I think Richie had several of them.
Yeah.
The first season.
Well, that's a true fan.
Season, because in between each episode, they had one of the Tracy Ullman shorts on each VHS tape.
Oh, that's actually really cool.
So
well, that's
I've
worth
seen
it then.
Almost all of those, I think. I like a lot of them, too.
That's really cool, actually.
But that's all thanks to my father, so...
Bob, like you, I also would do the two-a-days on, for us, it was WB33, but I remember specifically when I got satellite television sometime in middle school-ish, we could actually get both our local channels and we could get different time zones, so I could actually watch the same 2 episodes of The Simpsons twice back-to-back,
God.
So it'd be like episode A, episode B, and then a repeat episode A, episode B.
So you were binging before the word binge was a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I didn't even care that I was watching the same episode essentially twice. I mean, it was just always so much fun. So yeah, so you discovered it actually when it was live on the air, and you got pretty quickly were able to pick up reruns as well. So you're getting your Simpsons fix new each week, and the reruns twice a day or so.
Yeah, I was a junkie for The Simpsons. Still am, basically. I just... haven't had time for it. I haven't seen any of this season, but thanks to the internet, I can catch up real quick.
We're going to talk today about Itchy and Scratchy Land, which is, of course, a big-time parody of Disney World based on the popular, violent cartoon Itchy and Scratchy. But before we dive into the episode, you're a big theme park fan, too. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us some of your favorite things about theme parks and some of your favorite rides you get to visit there in Orlando.
Yeah, like you said earlier, I do live in Orlando. I do visit theme parks quite frequently, like probably more than a healthy adult probably should visit. And
no
I don't.
Such thing.
Well, this is true. Except for I don't bring my kids every time.
Makes it even better. You don't have things slowing you down. Kids are great, but they can also be the worst.
That's true, because there's some rides they won't go on. My wife and I take the kids, drop them off at school, drive to the theme parks, and then realize, it's time to go pick up the kids. Go back and because they don't do the 3D rides and everything else that Universal is just going nuts with.
Oh my gosh, that Transformers ride is really good.
It's good, but it can shake up your senses very easily, and they're just not. That's not their thing. So we do it.
I feel you. Yeah, I that was actually a ride. I mean, honestly, the Transformers movies. I love Transformers as a kid. The movies aren't great. Everybody knows it's they're there every year. That's a thing that they are. But other than that, they're not awesome. But
as long as China keeps paying for it, sure.
Yeah, exactly. But that ride, wow, I was blown away by how much fun that one was.
I did enjoy that. I do visit Universal and the Disney parks here quite frequently, and I just love that this particular episode has so many stabs and jabs and jokes at Disney. Like, I was trying to take notes. I've lost track. There's so many. Because I was making little notes. All right, that's a Disney joke. That's a Disney joke. And more than a half a dozen. Probably, no, more than 20. The thing I love about this episode more than anything else, it just seemed like a giant middle finger to the censors. I don't know if the censors in general or the Fox censors. It was probably at the Fox censors, knowing the Simpson writers.
I am so glad you brought that up, Bob. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to save it till the end of the episode, but I definitely have something to weigh in on from the notes from the director's commentary involving the censors on this episode.
Oh, cool.
We'll talk about that in a little bit. So why don't we go ahead and
Wait, are you saying
if
you poke a cat multiple times with a little needle that they're not going to survive, and then if you chainsaw off part of their muscles, they're not going to survive?
I've tried that.
Don't you wish working out was that easy? Like, I think he did 5 presses and like immediately looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, like, it was amazing how quickly he transitioned.
It doesn't take you 5 reps and you're done?
Well, 5 reps is tough, let's be fair. But if I got the results after 1 that he got, I might be more motivated to keep going.
We all would.
Reps?
Exactly. So let's go ahead and dive into our episode today. Itchy and Scratchy Land debuted on October 2nd, 1994. It had a chalk gag of, "I am not the reincarnation of Sammy Davis Jr., which clearly has some inspiration in the Bart character. And the couch gag is probably going to appeal to all you nerds out there, because it was basically beaming them up, Scotty, or beaming them in, Scotty. It was exactly like the Star Trek Transporter, thank you. The beamer thing where, beam me up, Scotty, like I said.
I'm an out-of-the-closet Trekkie.
They just kind of appeared on the couch there in the Simpsons living room. It opens up with Bart and Lisa watching that very episode of Itchy and Scratchy Richie was just referencing, Last Traction Hero, where Scratchy is beefing up very easily by just doing a few repetitions of weightlifting.
And those steroids kick in.
And the steroids kick in hard. When Itchy decides to deflate this new muscle-bound man, quite literally, by poking hundreds of pinholes into his chest, which makes him start bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, until he just starts bleeding out
from the blood loss.
Yeah.
And then that's when Itchy brandishes the chainsaw and cuts off his biceps.
Oh, it's actually his pecs, too. Like, he cuts circles right off of his chest. That's a really cool bit of animation. Which is amazing
precision for a chainsaw, I have to say.
Perfectly circular.
That's also true. Especially on flesh. You know how flesh gets caught up in a chainsaw real easy, and it can be a real nuisance.
Not according to any Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie I've seen.
Especially if he has hair, which of course cats do.
It's a catastrophe.
This is going really dark.
Oh,
God.
How funny. After this gruesome television program ends, Itchy turns to the camera and has something serious to say. He actually says that he'd like to be serious for a moment, and that's when Scratchy comes in and announces the grand opening of Itchy and Scratchy Land, the violentest place on Earth.
Trademarked.
This week only, half-price tickets. What a deal.
I'll tell you what, if any of the theme parks here offered a half day, there would be mobs of people just kicking down the doors.
It would almost be not worth it, because you would probably ride less than half the number of rides you would have otherwise if you went on just a regular day.
You know what? That's a really good point, because there is a theme park here in Orlando called Holy Land, where they have
I know what
to...
you're talking about.
Modland?
Holy Land. It's
Ned would have a lot of fun there, and Mod.
Yeah, I think in a future Simpsons episode they do mock Holy Land a little bit.
That's what I said. I think it's called Modland.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. but there's some kind of agreement because it's considered a religious event or location, I guess, that they have to, for tax reasons, offer free days like twice a year. And those two particular days, they are the most packed days of the year. Nobody goes other than those 2 days.
Wow. Again, just not worth it in the end. I also really love Krusty, though, at the end here, when he tells everybody to go ask their parents to take him to Krusty Land, and he's like, don't worry, you won't miss anything. I'm just going to sit here and read boring adult stuff.
I like how he's like, you heard the cartoon rat, like this show that's been on his show forever, and he doesn't know who Itchy is. You heard the cartoon rat?
I love how he's reading a horse book.
Oh, isn't it about, like, racing, too?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
For the horse races? Yeah. Lisa immediately knows how to appeal to her father. She goes for the wallet when she says, Dad, remember how you said going to Itchy and Scratchy Land would be too damn expensive?
Oh, everything's too damned expensive these days. Look at this Bible I just got. $15! And talk about a preachy book. Everybody's a sinner. Except for this guy.
I love that
one
line.
of the better jokes in this whole episode. We also immediately dive into this classic argument the kids and Homer often will get into with repetition when Bart says, but now Itchy and Scratchy Land is cutting ticket prices in half. Can we go, Dad? Can we? Can we? Can we? Take it, Lise.
Can we?
No, 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 no. Ask your mother.
Yay!
Yay!
And then I will admit, I'm probably not alone when I say I would absolutely do this to my parents as a kid. If you get a maybe out of one parent, that is a, hey, guess what, other parent? Original parent said that we're doing this.
Yep.
And that's what Lisa and Bart do to Marge. They say, Mom, Dad said that we can go to Itchy and Scratchy Land. But Marge is, of course, going to try at least to be the fun sucker before this all goes down. She's already planned out their vacation. They're going to be going to the Highway 9 Bird Sanctuary, and they've installed a new bird feeder this year. So to be fair, I mean, there is a real strong reason to go. It's basically like free day at the Holy Land.
But the look on Bart and Lisa's face when she says that is priceless. They look so upsetly terrified, like, oh.
Yeah, that particular shot always caught my attention because first off, the camera's pointing straight on at Bart and Lisa, and we don't see that angle of them very often. And they sat on it for quite a bit. I think like two times they went to that shot. And I thought that was very peculiar, that particular shot.
Yeah, they don't do straight-on looks at The Simpsons very often. In fact, there's memes going around not too long ago where it's like, this is one of the most horrifying images you'll ever see. And shots of Simpsons characters from the front.
And they're terrifying.
They are very. The commentary team actually did speak about this specific shot, and they mentioned how rare it is, but how well done it was for this moment, and how they really worked it in well and animated it as nicely as they could. I will say the commentary on this one had Matt Groening, David Merkin, Wes Archer, who directed this one, Dan Castellaneta and Yeardley Smith were still there in attendance talking and doing a lot of joking around as Homer and Lisa, of course. However, for some reason, not able to make it, the writer of this episode, John Swartzwelder.
I saw that one coming. Can we point out the fact that Bart and Lisa just saved the Simpsons' lives? I mean, they were already having a trip planned to go to the bird sanctuary. They go to Itchy and Scratchy Lands. Which one would be the worst vacation right now? Look what happens at the sanctuary. They just saved everyone's lives.
Oh, that's true. They may have been at the heart of the storm where the birdemic began.
Well, it's not exactly the park they ended up going to was the calmest of trips.
True. I just think he's referencing when Mole Man is having that bird scene at the end where he's being attacked in the phone booth.
I mean, flash photography is not going to save you from birds. Well, it might. There's only one way to find out.
I know I hate skipping, but I can't resist. I love later when the guy finds out, he sees him taking pictures and he just nudges the guy like, oh, no flash photography or whatever. It's like, if you know that's going to cause problems, why would you sell cameras in your gift shop?
Why would you open a theme park?
Well, there's that too.
Money.
Without taking a lot of precaution, but yeah. So far, the kids' plans to convince their parents to take them to Itchy and Scratchy Land have failed, but they're not done yet. Lisa rushes into her parents' room and announces very loudly, "Mom! Dad! Wake up! Bart's dead!"
That's right. Dead serious about going to Itchy and Scratchy Land.
God help my kids if they pull this. I'm throwing a shoe at them.
No, dude, if your kids pull this, you have to be fucking proud of them, sir. I mean, honestly, that's a pretty good move right there. I can understand why you might be mad because they woke you up early or whatever, but at the end of the day, you gotta be like, damn it, I raised some smart children.
Oh yeah, the sense would kick in eventually. It's just the reaction would be just toss something heavy at them.
Well, honestly, Bob, who throws a shoe?
Granted.
Where the hell did you learn this tactic? Aww.
So none of these tactics are working. Homer and Marge are just going back to sleep as Bart and Lisa yammer on about Itchy and Scratchy Land until Lisa points out, Itchy and Scratchy Land isn't just for kids. They do have a place called Parents Island.
Ooh.
Dancing, bowling, fashionable shops, over 100 bars and saloons, and a world-class chemical dependency center.
Well, count me in. 100 different bars and saloons? How do they fit all that in there?
I would say that this is the first Disney joke. Parents Island sounds like a complete parody of... God, what is it called now?
Paradise Island.
Well, yeah, it was originally... This time it was called Pleasure Island, then it changed
Pleasure
its name
Island, yeah,
to
that's what it
Downtown
was.
Disney, and now it's Disney Springs.
Pleasure Island was actually really cool, the way they had that themed and everything. I never actually got to go, but I'm a nerd about theme parks, and I watched the Defunct Land episode about that, if anybody's familiar with that podcast, or I listened to it. And it's just, the way they had, like, the stories running from bar to bar and whatnot, there's actually some pretty cool things about Pleasure Island, it sounded like, for a young adult, I would say, who is attending Disney.
Yeah, the very best place that they had there was a place called the Adventurers Club. You need to do some research on it. This place
I'm
was
very familiar
awesome.
with that place.
Is that like the place from South Park?
No. This place did, though, apparently have characters who would, they were walk-around characters, essentially, but they weren't, like, Mickey or Minnie. It was, like, explorers and various people of that nature who would tell their tales that would kind of enhance the immersion of the bar that you were in.
Yeah, it was comedy storytelling. You'd move from one room to another, and some rooms would have, like, audio animatronic things on the wall that would react with you. It was a very unique experience. I enjoyed it immensely, and I really, really miss it. I wish they would reopen it somewhere else.
There's actually a lot of people who feel the same way. If you look online, there's communities of people asking them to bring back the Adventurers Club.
Oh, yeah.
So that doesn't surprise me at all. But yeah, you're absolutely right. This is very much going and taking jabs. We'll get some more specifically with Pleasure Island here a little bit later in the episode. But for now, it actually seems like Marge and Homer are maybe on board with this idea.
Especially with TV Town and Hammock Land.
And don't forget the recipe-related bumper cars.
I'm trying to figure that one out in my head. It's like, how does that work? But it's The Simpsons. Let them go with it.
It's maybe like you get points for bumping and you can steal each other's recipes. I'm not really sure how it would work.
No,
either.
when you bump into the other mother
myself.
right there, you exchange recipes. That's what Marge is thinking.
It's very pleasant. There's actually no bumping on
the
these
bumpers are made
cars.
of cupcakes.
Just everybody with notepads.
Just polite exchanges and, like Richie pointed out, passing.
Dads can do it too, for the record.
Marge is still, though, not 100% convinced. She says, every time we've ever gone on vacation, I end up being horribly embarrassed. We end up in a big fight and we come home more miserable than we left. You have to promise me that this isn't going to happen this time.
Embarrassed? What are you talking about?
Well, there was that trip to Amish country.
Oh, yeah.
We see Homer sticking an ice cream cone on a man's head and essentially bragging that he can't do anything about it. Best part, though, is as we pan the camera out and Homer's like, I can be as big of a jerk as I want and no one does anything about it. We see that he stuck ice cream cones as, like, unicorn horns on almost every resident of the town and even some of the animals.
That is such a waste of good ice cream, because I know Amish ice cream is great.
Yeah, but I mean, Homer has $1,100 to spend on money, so I guess he has
God.
$1,100 to spend on ice cream.
You should have converted it to Amish dollars. It would have been more useful than
I don't even know how that converts.
Dollar to quilt ratio. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's like 40 to a rocking chair or something.
Kerjigger?
Marge also points out that it was even worse that time they went to Sandy Beach, and we get this sequence that I've always loved ever since I was a kid. I remember seeing this one. There's kids playing in the ocean, and a shark fin swims up, but it just turns out to be Homer with a shark fin on his back, and he pops out of the water and laughs and he scares the kid.
Suckers.
Then another shark fin pops up, and this time it's Bart doing the same thing, only Homer shrieks, "Ah! Shark Boy!"
Miles, did you ever pull that when you were a kid?
No, but I absolutely remember wanting to get a fake shark fin when I was a kid because of this episode. I thought it would be the most funniest thing. And of course, I'm swimming in a pool mostly, so it would probably not work all that well.
You might
but
get
in my head, oh my goodness.
Going back to the Amish thing real quick, you guys have this thing going on where you believe Homer is indestructible. Homer got kicked in the back by a donkey. Like
Unbreakable Homer.
Yeah, that would probably destroy the spine of a normal human.
That's a very good point, Bob. I'm glad you bring that up.
Absolutely.
Well done, sir. Unbreakable
Way to keep the
Homer.
myth alive.
The myth is alive. That's right. We've got Magical Maggie, of course. I'm on the fence about Beastmaster Bart, but it's been discussed, and I'm open to seeing more evidence. We're still looking to see exactly what Lisa and Marge do, because we feel like it's a whole family of magical people, but maybe Marge is just married in, or it's a recessive trait or something, and I'm not certain how Lisa would get skipped, but it's possible.
Lisa, I'm starting to think Lisa is the bard. She's like, what's the guy that can control the rats with the flute? I don't remember his name.
Pied Piper?
Yeah, the Pied Piper, but he was really evil and like luring children to kill and eat them, I believe.
Well, that's because he got gypped. Just don't gyp Lisa.
He wanted them to follow his own ideas. Is that not what Lisa is?
I think you're stretching harder than Beastmaster Bart at the moment, but I'm once again open for evidence.
No, you're not open. You always just shoot everything down. I don't even know why I come on this podcast every week.
So, I picked up on Magical Maggie real fast, and Unbreakable Homer, I mean, as Bob pointed out, and things that we know of the future, like taking the bowling ball to the gut. Like, this is not something normal humans can do. Just not convinced there with Lisa the Bard, honestly. But we can talk about that when more examples come up. For now, we see that Bart has assured his mother, "Don't worry, we're going to make you proud of us." And that's when we see Homer packing. He's got his lobster hat, his fishnet Speedo, his junior wheelie shoes, and of course his invisible dog leash. All packed.
Was that wheelie shoes before kids had rollerblade wheels on the bottom of their shoes?
I think that was before Heelys became popular, yes.
It was very much so before that. This is 1994 we're talking about.
So we are talking about some Simpsons did it right here.
Yep.
Absolutely.
The family is all packed. They've got everything in the car, and Marge is giving a few last-minute instructions to Grandpa. Remember, every morning give one bowl of kibble to Santa's little helper. Do you want me to write any of this down?
No, I'm not senile, dang nabbit.
Okay, bye-bye.
Wait, what was that last thing? Are you the mailman?
Grandpa's little helper?
What's that? I also love the actual reaction of Santa's Little Helper and Snowball 2 here, because they kind of slowly roll their eyes at each other in a bit of concern, it seems, because I think there's at least a reasonable chance they're not getting their one bowl of kibble a day.
They're versatile.
But also, Grandpa will probably leave the fridge open at some point, and they'll just help themselves.
They're foragers at this point.
Dad, blast it.
So Homer is excited to hit the interstate. It's open road all ahead until they hit the actual highway, and of course it's immediately backed up. I hate this aspect of traveling. It almost inevitably happens that when you're trying to get out of town and go do something fun, you are going to get delayed by some construction or wreck or other like bullshit that just slows everything up and sucks.
Or as we call it in Orlando, Interstate 4.
The one that literally goes right by Universal and Disney, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest, it's The Simpsons, though, so they probably waited till 5 o'clock on a Friday to leave.
This is true.
And I like Homer saying, okay, let's make a pact. This is going to be the best vacation ever, or we'll all agree to disband and join other families.
Agreed.
Deal.
I also really appreciate this gag they do with the kids on the road trip, because I actually went on quite a few road trips with my parents when I was a kid, and I do remember there was some sort of weird joy. I mean, I didn't even have a Game Boy at the time, so entertainment was limited, and one of the games you would play would be like to guess how many miles it'll be different between the next sign, essentially. And they don't exactly do this in this episode, but they keep advertising for a gas station or a restaurant called Flicky's that I interpret to be very similar to like a Buc-ee's if you've traveled and seen those before. And it's basically just counting down the miles, and as they get closer and closer, you can see the kids are actually getting excited until they actually ask, Dad, can we stop at Flicky's?
No.
And they then look very disappointed when they see the next sign says next Flicky's 25,000 miles.
Yeah, the mile radius on these signs is astronomical, in the hundreds of miles.
I mean, it's good advertisement, though, if you think about it. If you're driving past something and you're kind of on the fence about it and it says the next one's not until another country, you'd be like, well, I better turn around. In the middle of the ocean? Okay, I'll do a Yui real quick.
The next one's in Canada.
Which we also have to point out, Homer's ace up his sleeve must have worked. Because they were stuck in traffic and he said, don't worry, I've got an ace up my sleeve. And he started honking his horn to no avail. But clearly it worked because they're immediately driving in the next scene.
They're making good time. He's a dad. He knows what he's doing.
There you go.
I just imagine it's like the Batmobile in Batman Returns, where you can just like drop the sides off of it and fit in between traffic. Or that's the Simpsons car that I like to believe in.
That might have been a feature on the Homer.
Yeah, that very well could have been. Absolutely.
Do.
Oh my goodness, this next gag is very ridiculous, but also very hilarious. When they approach a vegetable checkpoint that you can't cross this line with fruits and vegetables, Homer immediately starts to panic. Marge is like, what the hell is wrong with you? We aren't carrying fruits and vegetables. But we see Homer has a pamphlet that it's called The Easy Road to Success. Step 1, smuggle fruits and vegetables. And we learn that he's actually stuffed the entire trunk full of fruits and vegetables. We see Squeaky Voice Teen, of all people, who works everywhere in Springfield and beyond, apparently.
Maybe they're the mole men at a young age.
Oh, that's a fun theory that we can explore. Yeah, he's all
everywhere.
Over the place. Yeah, he's just a younger version of that species. It's fun. But all he does is ask Homer, do you have any fruits or vegetable? And Homer immediately starts to panic. He spazzes out and he just slams the gas and runs through the barrier. I love the Squeaky Voice Teen here.
Hey, Mr. Wembley, it happened again.
How many times has this gone down?
Right?
Well, you've got a fruit and vegetable checkpoint probably all the time.
Where are they that there's a fruit and vegetable checkpoint? I mean, is Itchy and Scratchy Land in Canada or what?
Maybe they're taking a shortcut through Canada.
I can't believe you guys. You've never been through a fruits and vegetable checkpoint? How dare you call yourselves Americans?
I thought this was America.
You know, I like to point out that both this fruit and vegetable scene and the Flicky scene, I believe these were scenes that were cut for syndication, because I remember watching them. It was like, where's the Flicky scene? I remember watching that when the episode first aired. But yeah, there's this and another scene later on, I believe, that were cut for syndication purposes for time.
Oh, interesting.
For more commercials. Those jerks.
The Simpsons have a few other stops as they travel across country to visit Itchy and Scratchy Land, and to pass the time, they decide to absorb some local color through the magic of AM radio. Immediately we hear the DJ start saying, Book of Revelations tells us to watch for the 7 signs of evil.
Click.
Sign of evil number 4.
Click.
And finally, renewing our Sign of Evil countdown, here's Vanessa Williams. This is so accurate. That's literally all that is on AM radio, is just religious crazies talking crazy.
And I love how it sounded like Casey Kasem, too, in his top 40 countdown.
Aw.
The Simpsons stop in 5 corners, which is, of course, where 5 different states all manage to touch, and the Simpsons can hold hands all while standing in their own state. Of course, this is making fun or poking fun at the real-life 4 corners in the United States, which I believe is Arizona, Nevada,
No.
New Mexico,
Yes.
and Colorado? No. Kansas. Wyoming. No.
Oh my God, we are embarrassing.
I've actually been there, too.
I'm terrible at geography. I'm not even embarrassed about it.
I thought it was Colorado, but you're throwing me off now.
It's
maybe
all
it was
those square
Colorado.
states. They all look the same.
I think it has to be Colorado because it's so square. I think
Utah,
I nailed
Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico.
it. Is that not what I said? I didn't say Utah.
I don't think you said Utah.
I think I said Nevada.
You said Nevada.
Yeah. All right. Well, regardless, it's making fun of that, and I do love, because Richie said he's been there, I've also been there, and it really is that boring, folks.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's okay for a minute, but they're just standing there for a long time, and finally one of the kids is like, how long do we have to all stand in our own state? Marge decides, we should probably find a motel and stop for the night. It's been getting late, and Homer, clearly falling asleep at the wheel in a slurred voice, is like, we don't need to stop, Marge. I'm not tired. I'm not tired at all. And the next thing we see is actually quite traumatic. The car skids into a slide and ends up crashing into a telephone pole before it bursts into flames. Only for the camera to pan out, and we can see the Simpsons safely watching this happen from a motel room, and Bart even points out, woo, glad that wasn't us.
Yeah, I've always remembered that animation style, because when you first see it, the first time I ever saw the episode, you're like, what? And as soon as it panned out, it's like, haha, it's funny when people die and it's not them.
Yeah, the whole family is taking this tragic event very calmly. It's like, woo, all right.
Well, I think this is definitely going to make our Merkin Moments list when we get to our Season 6 finale. Richie actually created that on our Season 5 finale spectacular show.
Our Season Folly show.
And yeah, it's David Merkin does definitely have a darker sense of humor than a lot of people do. In fact, something we'll talk about later is he even is quoted on this commentary as saying, if it weren't allowed to make these violent cartoons, who knows what sort of crazy psychotic shit he would do in real life.
That's the best therapy solution I've ever heard.
Also, Wes Archer, the director, said the very same, or one of the animators, I believe. I can't remember now, I apologize, but he also made the same comment. It's like, making these violent things just helps level you out sometimes.
These violent delights have violent ends. For all the
nice!
Westworld
Westworld Season 2, Episode 1 was so good. I'm so excited that show's back.
I forgot that you actually started watching that. I'm happy that you started watching that.
It's one of my new favorite shows. And since you brought it up, Richie, we haven't got to the sequence yet that makes this true, but a lot of Simpsons fans associate this episode with the show, with the movie and book Jurassic Park. And there is one scene specifically that is very directly from that film or from that book. However, the Simpsons creators actually used a lot more inspiration from the movie Westworld, which is another Michael Crichton project that we talked about not too long ago, and The Boy Who Knew Too Much, I believe it was, where Skinner was very reminiscent of the Man in Black in the older film. But yeah, so there's a lot of references from Westworld throughout this episode, and only the one from Jurassic Park, but because this episode came out so close to the release of Jurassic Park, I believe in just a year or so later, it's more heavily associated as being a parody of Jurassic Park.
Right, but in the original Westworld movie, it's the robot that goes around killing everybody, so that makes a lot of sense.
Totally. So the Simpsons did decide to take the night off after all, and that was clearly a good thing. However, they have lost a lot of time, and Homer is not having any luck with the map. North, south, nuts to this. Let's take a shortcut.
Homer, no, you're going to get lost.
Marge, trust me, with today's modern cars, you can't get lost. I mean, with all these silicone chips and such, which, did Simpsons not totally predict that? Because that's almost true today.
Yeah. But their car's so old, I didn't figure that it had a computer.
Oh, no. I mean, they had computers probably operating certain aspects of the car, but they're not having GPS and things of that nature at this time.
But again, Homer thinks everyone else is unbreakable, so it doesn't matter. He's just going to sit back and let it do its thing. Everyone will be fine.
Well, and to be fair, it does technically work, though. When they get to Itchy and Scratchy Land, we see that the car has almost been destroyed, and it's carrying things like a missile, and it's just dragging a lot of various stuff, as it clearly went on some sort of adventure. Homer even declares, "All right, we're here. Now let us never speak of the shortcut again."
Which they had a missile in the car. Did you guys hear yesterday? I know we record early, but there was an old World War II mortar found in a town somewhere in the U.S. and they had to evacuate the whole town.
Oh God!
No, I didn't know that. That's funny.
I don't remember where it happened, but when I saw the missile sitting in the car or in the hood of the car, it made me think of that for some reason.
Yeah, there's a town here in Orlando. Well, not in Orlando, but in Florida, that used to be a naval bombing site, and then they decided, okay, years later, they built this housing community there, and just as people were doing yard work, oh look, there's a bomb that never went off underneath my grass.
And my mower blade was inches from it, spinning at high speeds.
Yeah.
That's fun. Well, Homer did drag a missile, but they did get there safely. It didn't explode. They arrive at Itchy and Scratchy Land, and Homer says, "Now remember, kids, we parked in the Itchy lot." And when we pan out, you can see it's just this giant mall of like a sea of cars parked, and it's just two giant parking lots, the Itchy lot and the Scratchy lot. You would be lost for days searching for your car in that situation. And even worse, what must the line be like to get from the parking lot into the 4-person helicopter? That, again, this is the scene that is directly from Jurassic Park. They fly to the island of Itchy and Scratchy Land, which looks amazing. It's got a rock sculpture of Itchy and Scratchy's heads, and you can even see a giant roller coaster at the very top of the island. It looks dope as fuck, but immediately I'm just thinking, 4 people to a helicopter, sea of parking lot. You'll spend 3 days just trying to get into the actual island to enjoy the park.
Yeah, the Simpsons must have bought a VIP pass to get in, because that is some luxury transportation to get in. I mean, Disney has the monorail and those electric carts that take it from your car to the park itself. But getting back to the parking lot, I thought this was interesting. Yeah, they made the joke about the Itchy lot and the Scratchy lot are just gigantic. And I thought that has to be a stab at Walt Disney World, where the Magic Kingdom parking lot is bigger than all of Disneyland in California.
Oh my gosh. Jeez. I didn't know that. That's crazy.
I do the Itchy lot thing anytime I park in a big place. Like, I've done it ever since the first time I saw this episode. Especially if I'm with other people. As soon as we get out of the car, and I always got weird looks for it too. It's like, remember, we parked in the Itchy lot. And everyone just kind of looks at me, unless you have the occasional Simpsons fan in there with you. But I love that bit.
That's pretty damn funny. And on that note, that does bring us to the end of Act 1.
You did something possibly wrong. Possibly wrong.
That's the first thing that's ever gone wrong on this podcast. So, on that note, that possibly went wrong, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break and hear from some buddies of ours. We'll be right back.
Are you afraid of what goes bump in the night?
Have you or your friends ever pondered a conspiracy?
Do you want to know more about the unknown?
If so, then put on your tinfoil hat, sit down, and pick up your computer, tablet, or phone. Go to iTunes or YouTube and search for Secret Transmission Podcast and listen to us try to explain the unexplainable.
Follow us on Twitter for updates on shows.
At Secret Trans Pod. That's SecretTranspod.
Or you can email us suggestions
at secrettransmission@hotmail.com. That's SecretTransmission@hotmail.com.
Hi, it's Mike Reese. I've been writing for The Simpsons for 30 years. I ran the show in seasons 3 and 4. I created The Critic. And now I've written a book. It's called Springfield Confidential, and it is the first insider's look at The Simpsons. It's filled with secrets, scandals, and tales of censorship and celebrities. It's a great book. It's like a Simpsons episode. It's fast, it's smart, and it's packed with hundreds of jokes, some of them funny. Please buy Springfield Confidential. You can order it now on Amazon.com.
When we get back for our second act, the Simpsons are at Itchy and Scratchy Land, and the kids couldn't be more excited. Homer goes to buy the tickets, and he's asked if he wants to buy some Itchy and Scratchy money.
I want to point this line out right now, and it'll come up again later. Homer buys 1 adult and 4 children tickets.
I noticed that, you cheapskate.
We'll come back to this in a little while.
So, he also has the opportunity to buy some Itchy and Scratchy bucks, which are another dig at the concept of Disney dollars. Now, Homer buys an absurd amount, and David Merkin points out that this is why it's nice to be on a show with a very flexible reality, because he has $1,100 in cash sitting in his wallet, and he converts all of it to Itchy and Scratchy bucks, and then they go inside the park, and almost every single vendor and food place and anywhere that you could possibly spend money, all had signs that said Itchy and Scratchy dollars not accepted.
And we just saw in a few episodes ago that Homer only makes $200 a week or $250 a week?
Well, $40 a day, because that's
Yeah.
when he went for the sugar a few episodes. Remember, he skipped work.
$200 a week. So I don't know how he got $1,100. He's doing some shady business deals. But
Either that or it's all that B Sharp's royalty money coming in.
there you go. Oh, I'll take $1,100 worth.
So they approach their first ride, Tavern on the Scream, which actually has a seemingly real giant knife that chops down in front of the front door, and Homer just barely squeezes through without getting cut.
It's always good.
The kids are just like, oh, wow, cool, that was neato.
Such a violent motif.
Yeah, but it's just pretend violence, which is actually beneficial for children, as he kicks Lisa.
Ow! Punch.
Ow. And Marge is actually upset at this point. She does her classic growl.
Did you guys notice Maggie in that moment?
No, what did Maggie
No.
do?
She was moving her fists around like she was pretending to punch for a split second while they were talking about that.
Well, she picked up that violence way back in, I believe, season 1, or possibly season 2, now that I say that, where she hit her father in the head with a mallet because of Itchy and Scratchy, so it kind of makes sense.
But Bart literally says it's beneficial for children, so that's why I really like that it looks like a split-second little thing, but it looked like she was literally, soaking it in.
But while Marge is upset, we see a representative of Itchy and Scratchy Land approach to reassure her that everything's gonna be just fine.
Yeah, I love this. He has the slimiest laugh as he comes in too. There's no need to murmur, ma'am. Here at Itchy and Scratchy Land, we're just as concerned with violence as you are. That's why we're always careful to show the consequences of deadly mayhem, so that we may educate as well as horrify.
When do you show the consequences? On TV, that mouse pulled out that cat's lungs and played them like a bagpipe, but in the next scene, the cat was breathing comfortably.
Just like in real life. Hey, look over there.
Hey, look over there still works to this day on some people.
Yeah. A lot of people, are you kidding me?
And the way he just ran off and the voice just trailed off, I thought that was perfect audio editing right there.
They do that a lot over the series, where they have the voice of somebody frantically running away, but in a split second, where they do the yoink, and that's always comical to me. And it's always well placed.
Yeah, and that just goes to show how much of a team effort The Simpsons is, because we talk a lot about how great the voice actors are, but the animation, the sound editing, the music, there's so many aspects that go into each and every show that really make it as impactful as it is, and these are great examples of some of the smaller details that may go unnoticed more often than not, but really make a huge impact on the enjoyment of an episode.
And they don't always do it the same way either, because in the Australia episode when Homer and Bart are running past the gift shop that Marge and Lisa are in, you get the great moment where it's like, Marge, Lisa. So they do it in different ways sometimes, but it's always so funny.
Absolutely. For now, though, the Simpsons are going to go and check out one of the many restaurants available at Itchy and Scratchy Land. This one is a place where the menu is shaped like a bomb. And Bart says to the waiter, "I'll have the brain burger with extra pus, please."
Bart!
Homer orders the eyeball stew.
Homer, we just got here and already I'm mortified beyond belief by your embarrassing behavior.
But Bart just goes on to explain, "I was just ordering a cheeseburger, Mom. They have violent names for everything here."
Oh, I see. All right. I'll have the baby guts.
Ugh, lady, you disgust me.
Mom, that's veal.
Oh. Like she didn't know what it said in the description?
Well, and I like these little early signs of Lisa specifically. I mean, it's not just Lisa, obviously the waiter, and a lot of people are disgusted by veal. I mean, personally, I'm not a big fan of how they're raised and whatnot. So
I thought it was supposed to be called Dead Baby Cow now.
Yeah, exactly. Just call it what it actually is.
Delicious.
And that's fine, to each your own. I mean, we're predators after all. But they are clearly disgusted with Marge for ordering veal, and that just kind of plants the seeds for when Lisa becomes a vegetarian a little bit later on in life, but still at the age of 8, of course.
Sure thing, Jelly Bean.
After their disgusting meal in more than one way, they check the park map to see things like Torture Land, Explosion Land, Searing Gas Pain Land, and Unnecessary Surgery Land.
And I'll tell you that I love looking at the Disney maps, and I was noticing that the map they're holding is laid out almost the exact same way as Magic Kingdom, where Torture Land is where Frontierland is, Explosion Land is Fantasyland, Unnecessary Surgery Land was Tomorrowland, and what was the last one?
Searing Gas Pain Land.
Yeah, that one was Adventureland.
Well, Bob, you share that knowledge and love for Disney park maps with the creator of The Simpsons, Matt Groening, who said on the commentary that he, for whatever reason, has always just been completely in love with getting those maps at the theme parks and amusement parks, and he'd love to stare at them and check off the places he's been. And that's a big part of why this section is actually in the show.
That is so cool. I love that. I have something in common with Matt Groening.
There you go.
Now, something I'd love to do is I'd grab like the foreign language ones, and because I knew the park by the back of my hand, I would just look at the maps like, oh, so that's what that means in Mandarin Chinese.
Nerd!
The maps at theme parks are always fun, though, because they have the land separate like that. I totally get where you're coming from with that.
But there's no more time to check out the map because Homer cries out, "Oh, look, it's the 12 o'clock noon robot parade. Hurry up or we're going to have to wait till the 12:05 parade." And this parade is very much a reference to the Electric Light Parade at Disney, and they do make fun of the idea of how often it gets brought through the park, I guess. I don't think it's quite every 5 minutes, but from what I understand, it is a lot. It's also where the episode starts to take a shift where it's very clearly starting to parody Westworld. We see very shortly that the robots are programmed to identify other robots and attack them, but they're programmed to recognize humans and do no harm.
Humans, no harm.
I actually really love this joke. It's a contender for one of my favorite jokes in the episode. One of the robots takes a bow to Homer after identifying it as human and not a threat, and he actually tips not his hat, but the top of his skull, revealing the inside of the robot. And Marge says, "See, Homer? All the stuff inside is why your robot didn't work."
Which is odd, because that's just like I guess a practical protocol for them. Oh, let's show the guest my insides.
Right. You would think like that would be if it were Disney. People from Universal would be there with cameras taking pictures to steal all those ideas and vice versa.
To reverse engineer it.
Maybe when they do that, there's something built in there to wipe all the memory from cameras, even though this is before cameras had memory.
Yeah. You know, one nice benefit of all this, though, is good for Marge, because she's finally getting the peaceful, quiet, alone time, or not really alone time, but family time that she's wanted from the beginning. They're on a very peaceful log ride that has music that is arguably reminiscent of the music played on the Pirate of the Caribbean theme, or according to the commentary, it was as close as they were legally allowed to do. And they were enjoying the peacefulness of it. Marge even says, "This is the vacation I was hoping for." And then the real ride begins as they start plummeting down a steep slope. They come inches from having their eyeballs impaled by sharp spikes. They fall through an area where they start getting shot at by arrows, and it looks like they're going to get sawed in half by a blade, and in fact they do, where they go falling down to the very safe-looking exit where they all land on a pile of mattresses, which I can tell you from experience, falling from that distance, it's not going to be a nice, easy landing, folks. You're going to get some reverberation and some relaunch back up into the sky.
Maybe it's more of a beanbag mattress type thing.
Memory foam, yeah.
Now, one of the funny things I thought of is at Disney, if someone gets sick and throws up on the sidewalk, they put on their intercom a code V. Now, what kind of code do they put out if somebody doesn't lean to the right way on this ride?
Good point. That's going to take a lot of sawdust to clean up. At least they've got a log mill
whatever
right
blood
there.
type they are, we have a new donor.
Oh, he's an organ donor, too!
This ride doesn't sit so well with Marge, and she decides, perhaps the best way we can spend time together as a family is by spending time apart as individuals.
Parents Island?
Yep, I'm sure we'll appreciate each other all more when we meet up at dinner. You kids gonna be alright? Kids? And we can see in the background Bart and Lisa have already loaded back up on the log ride and are going again with giant smiles on their face. And another animation and sound, just a detail I'll say that they caught that I absolutely love, is I think they perfectly showed exactly how that jerky feeling at the beginning of any ride always is, where there's a very sudden start to the ride as it kind of jerks you forward when it begins.
Yeah, those boat rides are not as smooth as you think they are. When I was on the Frozen attraction at Epcot, boy, we got bumped around pretty hard because you'd assume the boats are on a track, but they're not. They're just flowing on the water, and they just bump it against the side constantly.
Oh, wow. I thought they were on a track.
Well, in some cases they are, like, say, It's a Small World and whatever, but I remember that Frozen ride, that was... And by the way, oh god, if you hate Frozen, don't ever go on that ride.
I've never actually
Totally
seen
noted.
the movie. I've heard it's pretty good, but I've never seen it.
There's a lot of useless characters in it. Frozen was one of the few that, I just did... I feel like there's a lot of story that is unnecessary in that movie, and it just bothered me, and especially with how big it blew up. They could have gotten rid of all the male characters pretty much in the movie, and it would have been fine, except for one of the bad guys. But
they didn't need the snowman.
I was okay with Olaf, but the main, I guess you could say, love interest and his pet served no purpose to the story whatsoever. They try to help, but they're not needed, and I felt like they just threw them in just to have that side of it brought in or something.
So it's just
it's hard to explain without you seeing it.
So it's just a little bit childish, and you wanted something to have a little bit more of an adult edge, like Homer and Marge, who have wandered over to Parents Island, of course, parroting Pleasure Island from Disney. And we see Itchy's 70s Disco, established in 1980. It is the 70s, right down to the smallest detail.
Hey, the bartender even looks like John Travolta.
Yeah, looks like. So, fun fact about this joke was actually a lot more relevant at the time that this episode airs, because you see, in the late 80s and early 90s, John Travolta actually was in a bit of a slump. He had kind of fallen out of good grace in Hollywood, and he hadn't had a solid role in quite some time. However, this episode just so happened to air exactly 2 weeks before the movie Pulp Fiction released in theaters, which, of course, revitalized John Travolta's career and made this joke essentially obsolete.
So the joke was relevant for less than a month.
Exactly. Literally 2 weeks later.
I was hoping you were going to say Battlefield Earth.
No, that came a few years after
That was
this, and
96
somehow
or
didn't
something,
crash his career at that point. It still stayed going for at least a little while. However, while the adults are having a good time being served drinks by John Travolta, the kids are looking around at all the great stuff available at the gift shop, though Bart's a little upset because he's looking through the keychains and he sees Bert and Bort, but no Bart. Come on, Bort!
Mommy, buy me a license plate.
No, come along, Bort.
Are you talking to me?
No, my son is also named Bort. And I need to stop right here and give a big thank you to Bob, who's joining us right now, because Bob actually sent me a Bort keychain from Universal Studios in Springfield. I'm looking at it right now. It hangs in front of me on my wall with some other various Simpsons crap that I look at each and every time I'm recording. So big thank you, Bob. That's really dope of you.
You're so welcome. I love how this Bort joke, this quick little segment, has become such a theme park Easter egg. The two main gift shops at Universal, you will find Bort merchandise. Not nameplates, unfortunately. But yeah, shot glasses, keychains. It's just the strangest thing that they took this tiny little joke and they started, all right, we can make some money off this. And people actually buy this stuff like I do.
I'm sure that's probably easily their bestseller in terms of individual names. Like, it's going to be
sure Gary
Anthony or Lisa all day, every day.
I'm assuming you got Miles the Bort keychain because there were no Miles ones available, because they don't exist.
They really never do. I've never once found my name in one of those gift shops.
For what it's worth, I never saw Richie, and when I was a kid, I never wanted a Richard one.
You could always go with Dick.
I'll leave that up to you, Miles. You go with all the Dick you want.
Don't mind if I do.
For that to pan out.
Go ahead, Bob.
I was waiting for that to pan out.
So, I don't have a good segue for this, but let's dive right back in. They're looking along at the...
Diving right back in is a good segue.
Yeah, you're right. That was a happy accident.
Head first.
They're looking around the gift shop, and Lisa has to ask Bart, hey, who are all these other characters? And Bart says, you're probably too young, but there is a short-lived Itchy and Scratchy and Friends hour, and they had to come up with some characters or some friends. So we meet Disgruntled Goat, Uncle Ant, and the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh, yeah. They weren't very funny.
I don't know. Disgruntled Goat had his moments.
So people just forget about these when Poochie comes along, I guess.
Yeah, basically. And there was another character they didn't address, but I was actually interested to see. I wanted to hear more about him because he looked the most interesting. At the top shelf, there was a bear with what looked like an orange mallet or a baseball bat.
I also saw that. They didn't mention one of the characters. It's very interesting. Especially since they took the time to draw him up.
Badass bear.
Clubby.
Itchy, Scratchy, and Clubby. And Molly. Oh.
Next up, we see the kids or the Simpsons family in general have their first of many interactions, we'll call them for now, with some of the people dressed up in costume, the walk-around characters. We see a man dressed up as Itchy, and we see Bart think about it for a moment before very hard stamping on the guy's poor foot as the guy's just trying to get a paycheck. Poor dude. I feel bad for him. Meanwhile, over at Pleasure Island, Parents Island, the Simpsons are at TGI McScratchy's Good Time Food Drinkery. Homer and Marge have party hands and they're dancing to a live band, and we hear an announcement that at this restaurant, it's always New Year's Eve. Here we go again. 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year! And this is yet another jab at Disney, as I'm sure, Bob, actually, I'll let you take it away, because I'm sure you know more about this than I do, but I know that there was a real-life place at Pleasure Island, that this was essentially their gimmick, as they'd have New Year's every night, is that right?
Right at midnight, every single night, they would have, at Pleasure Island main hub, a countdown to midnight. They didn't call it New Year's, but it was the countdown to midnight. They'd have fireworks and everything going off. It was a big celebration, and this is exactly a parody of it. And by the way, now that Disney owns Springfield, I know this can't happen, but I really wish there was a TGI McScratchy's Good Time Food Rinkery at Universal.
They really should. That should be in their next expansion, but yeah, you're right.
They should just make Itchy and Scratchy Land.
There's an idea. That would actually be a fun kind of like, you know what they should do since they're so close? They should change MIB into the Itchy and Scratchy Land ride where you actually have lasers and could shoot the robots and whatnot. That would actually be really cool. And those are close enough that you could expand that and it would make sense logistically if I remember right.
I would be against that because Men in Black is awesome. I love that ride.
It's dated, though, in my opinion. I used to love it, but the last time I was there, I don't know, it's okay. I like shooting aliens, so that's fun.
I can tell you that don't fall in love with anything at Universal because everything changes. There are only 2 attractions still at Universal Orlando that are still there from day one.
Oh, yeah, a lot of stuff. I mean, as much as I love Harry Potter, it was a real shame to see Jaws go. I love The Mummy, but man, Confrontation was super dope. And this is going to be controversial. I know I'm about to lose some friends here, but I love Springfield at Universal Studios. But by God, do I miss the Back to the Future ride that it replaced. It's like it picked something that I love and replaced it with something else that I love, but I want both so bad, or at least I feel like there should be a way that they could program it, even if the theming wasn't there, that you could still ride the Back to the Future ride periodically. I was actually there on Back to the Future Day, and I secretly hoped that they were going to do something like that, and they really didn't do that much special. They had t-shirts, and there was a big gathering at the DeLorean at the actual time from the movie for something. I don't remember, but it was cool, but again, I'm just so heartbroken to lose Back to the Future, even if it is for The Simpsons.
There is a short call-out to Back to the Future if you're waiting in line for The Simpsons, where...
Poor Doc.
Doc Brown, he's trying to sell the Institute to some corporation that's going to keep it afloat, but what happens is like he gets ran over by something, and then he realizes he's got to sell to that maniacal clown.
Yeah, that's a good little gag, and you're right. It's a total Easter egg because it's in one of the videos in the line as you wait. A lot of fun. That's one of my favorite things about Universal is the theming they do in the line like that. I mean, sometimes going through the line is as much fun as the ride itself.
Maybe. I've never been there, so I don't want to make any huge claims like that because rides are a lot of fun.
Next time, Richie, it's going to be 2020. You're coming along. For now, let's go ahead and keep going along with this podcast. We are getting pretty close to the next act break, I do believe. But right now, the kids are actually having a lot of fun in the Itchy Minefield presented by Laramie Cigarettes. And they're literally bouncing off of mines, just bouncing into the air and rolling around. I guess that
looks like a lot of fun.
I guess they're more like airbags. That would make sense, and that would actually be somewhat cool. But, I mean, obviously that's not going to exist in real life because you're just waiting for something. That's like Action Park level of dangerous. No Action Park fans, I take it.
You're going to have to... I'm not familiar.
Action Park was considered one of the most dangerous theme parks ever. It was in New Jersey, and they're actually... Johnny Knoxville and crew are making a movie about it soon.
I saw the preview for that.
That's based on a real-life actual park that existed in New Jersey.
Oh.
Okay. Was there an abandoned episode on this?
Yes, there was. And, I don't know if it was abandoned specifically, but there's several of those. And one of the ones I would recommend would be the Defunct Land, if you're familiar with that show. It's very similar to Abandoned. And, yeah, they go into great detail. It's actually one of my favorite episodes of that show. And, yeah, I'm really excited about the new movie. And just to put it in perspective...
that actually looked pretty funny.
The theme park itself actually acquired the nickname Class Action Park because of how many lawsuits they went down back in the day. And it's got a really interesting history, just some of the stuff they got away with. But yeah, definitely check that out. Back in the Simpsons theme park at Itchy and Scratchy Land, though, they have to find something to do with Maggie. And I don't think we talked about it earlier. I guess we missed that. I'm sorry. We'll back up just a little bit. As the parents go to Parent Island, they actually drop Maggie off at the daycare center, which is in reality just a giant ball pit that the babies are literally stuck in. It's almost sad as they're kind of pushed up against the window. And at this point, we revisit Maggie to see that the babies have climbed their way to the top and are looking sad.
They've breached.
Yeah, they've gotten some air finally. And what's the solution to this from the daycare staff? We'll just add some more balls. Baby love balls.
Before we continue here, we talked about this last season, or maybe the season before, about Homer's bad luck with robots. With the George Washington robot that tried to kill him and Bart or something, or just him. So I just want to put that in your head here for this, because, I mean, maybe this time we'll have good luck with robots.
Yeah, this seems like it's going that direction, doesn't it?
What could go wrong?
Absolutely. These are state-of-the-art robots that can distinguish humans from other robots, so nothing could go wrong.
Nothing could go wrong. And nothing has gone wrong yet. The kids are at a video learning about the creator of Itchy and Scratchy, the Roger Myers story. It's just one of those stand-up theaters that actually do exist at Disney, or at least did when I was there decades ago, where you could go and learn about the history of various things. In this case, parodying Walt Disney himself. They even make a reference to him. The one time he made a very controversial film called Nazi Supermen Are Our Superiors.
Now, to be clear, that was Roger Myers who made that video, not Disney.
Not Disney, yes.
Yeah.
That was parodying.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, that was
it.
a parody of the time that Walt Disney was very heavily involved with essentially the Red Scare, which is another interesting
But there was
story.
some wording in that particular, the Roger Myers story that I latched onto when they said Roger Myers loved almost all peoples. Well, I read that, yeah, I read that as a direct stab at Disney, because there were two things that he, unproven but rumored to hate, and that was organized unions, and he was anti-Semitic. So, don't know if it's true. It probably isn't. It's just one of those rumors that flies around.
But the Simpsons were definitely taking a jab at him.
Oh, without a doubt, yes.
We also learn a couple of the history of some of the films that got him started. One of his earliest achievements was Scratchtasia, which is very clearly a parody of Fantasia. We see Itchy...
Wait, what?
Yeah, exactly.
It is?
I actually like, as Scratchy chops Itchy up into tinier and tinier pieces, he eventually inhales him as a dust, and we see inside micro Itchies chopping up Scratchy from the inside, and he decays away. It's a really fun bit of animation. It's actually a lot of fun.
I noticed the quality for that animation seemed to surpass the rest of the entire episode.
It's probably because they were
'Cause it was a
parodying
movie.
Disney.
Yeah.
I mean, the movies always have better animation than the shows, right?
If the budget allows it, sure.
Right. We also learn of his second film, or another achievement. I don't know if it was actually... I think they said it was his second full-length feature, Pinocchio, in which we see Scratchy's basically Geppetto, and Itchy assures him that he's never going to lie to him, which causes his nose to instantly grow and impale Scratchy right through the eye.
Yo!
Aww.
While all this is happening, Cletus is outside watching the parade. Hey, Ma, I'm gonna get me a picture of this crazy critter. And when he takes the picture, the flash on the camera is on, and it clearly causes some sort of disruption in this robotic Scratchy, because it goes absolutely crazy, and it pops through the screen of this film as Lisa and Bart are watching the movie.
That's probably not important at all for the story.
It's great timing, because Lisa, right before this happens, says to Bart, I wonder if this kind of violence really does desensitize us. Then as the Scratchy crashes through the screen, it literally starts slinging blood in their face. They don't even flinch.
Meh.
And I love that the robots are just preloaded with blood to squirt.
Yeah. You know, hey, immersion is important at a theme park.
What I want to point out is, Cletus said Ma, and if you looked, there was an old lady standing directly next to him that looked not exactly similar, but looked kind of white trashy. And I'm wondering if that was actually Cletus's Ma right there, because you'll see him yell at her numerous times, but I don't remember ever actually seeing her after this point.
Honestly, I don't know, but we'll have to keep our eyes out on that.
Maybe she succumbed to diabetes.
Maybe it's like a Psycho thing where she's dead after this because of the robot attack, and he just pretends that she's alive all the time still. Hey, Ma, get off the dying roof!
Well,
She's not
as
on the
Bart
roof.
and Lisa leave the theater, they encounter yet another character, another person dressed as a character, and Bart, just for whatever reason, cannot stand these things. He actually has, for, good thing he was traveling with his little bastard's traveling kit, because he's able to get a stink bomb and shoot it into this costume with his slingshot. And he starts chuckling, and I love this, because he says, "Can you believe I keep getting away with this?" And then he turns to see a cop, and he goes, Officer? The officer actually takes Bart away. We see him go into an underground chamber, a series of tunnels and offices and control rooms.
The utilidors!
Exactly. It's actually based on, once again, the real-life Disney park, which, if you are not aware, is actually built on a series of tunnels and corridors that allow the park employees to get to certain segments of the park, and I know they use it for character appearances, so they can make them kind of appear and not be walking into behind-the-scenes areas. They have them very well hidden in ways that are very creative, so they can kind of keep it a magical experience.
Yeah, it's
like Wonder World and Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Exactly. I think that might have actually been shot there.
Beverly Hills Cop 3 was shot in Florida at Universal.
Oh, was it Universal? I thought it may have been Disney.
Most of it.
Oh, yeah, you're totally right. Now I remember that was like a lot of the rides are actually Universal rides, just kind of reskinned.
Yeah, the utilidors at, and this is at Orlando's Disney Park. California's Disney Park doesn't have any underground tunnels, but the one in Orlando, the tunnels basically go around the outside, and then they have hubs that stretch out.
Around the outside?
I'm sorry?
Around the outside?
Well, around the outer rim of the of the park. Richie, you suck diddly yuck. I just wanted to get that in there.
I love we get this little callback, a series of callback jokes as Bart's drugged through these tunnels, because there's a series of guys at the control panel yelling out various commands, such as, "We need a mop bucket to the exit of the nauseator."
We got another jumper on the roof of TGI McScratchy's.
We are out of Bort license plates. Repeat, Bort license plates.
That's such a good joke they keep going back to. I love it. And we get to see another reference to TGI McScratchy's, of course, which we saw earlier. Underground, we see there is a laboratory where a man removes the metal faceplate from the Scratchy robot, and it actually kind of screams out, and the man just says, "Oh, I wish it wouldn't scream." You can tell it really hurts him.
That's my favorite joke of the episode.
It's a really good joke.
Why would you program that?
I really wish they wouldn't scream.
When Bart's thrown into his Disney jail cell, or his Itchy and Scratchy jail cell, I should say, he's surprised to see his father there, who says he had kicked one of those stupid Itchy characters in the butt.
Yeah, there's just no way to resist it, is there?
And poor Marge, she's actually having a great time. Things are going so well. She's actually commemorating this experience in the gift shop by buying 5 t-shirts, and she wants them all to say, "Best vacation ever."
Attention, Marge Simpson, your son has been arrested.
And then we hear the other women in the shop, "I'd be terribly embarrassed if I were that boy's mother."
Attention, Marge Simpson, we've also arrested your older, balder, fatter son.
Poor Marge.
This is what I wanted to come back to. Is this just making a joke that Homer's childish, or is this because Homer actually bought 4 children's tickets?
Yeah, maybe
Marge
was
a continuity joke here?
Oh, he wasn't the adult?
Exactly. Marge is the adult, so Homer would have a child ticket on him.
Well, either way, Marge is just so embarrassed she could crawl in a hole and just die.
Okay, throw in the hole.
Oh, please, that was just a figure of speech.
I love that they have German accents.
And that they have a hole, apparently.
Yeah, you don't have a hole just lying around?
Right, apparently that's something we're lacking.
And I can tell you from...
there is a hole.
There is a hole at Disney. It's under construction right now. I can tell you from friends who've gone through this experience, if you do something wrong, they don't have a detention center. They'll bring you into an office, guy sits down, he takes your information, and then he hands you a sheet of paper. It says you are now banned from life from all Disney property and resorts. Which
basically means you can't live in the state of Florida anymore.
Yeah, since it's the largest employer in the state.
Right. Yeah, you're pretty much fucked at that point. I don't know why it cracks me up so much, but the fact that Dr. Frink apparently either works at this park or was able to travel there very quickly to get his point across. He has something to share with the scientist or the repair team at Itchy and Scratchy Land.
You've got to listen to me. Elementary chaos theory tells us that all these robots will eventually turn against their masters. Now I'm sounding like fucking Shatner.
No, keep going. You're doing great.
You're doing good, Richie. Hit it
And
one more
run
time.
amok in an orgy of blood and kicking and the biting with the metal teeth and the hurting and shoving. Glaven.
How long do we have?
Well, according to my calculations, the robots won't go berserk for at least 24 hours.
And of course, immediately the Scratchy robot they're working on starts to go berserk, and all the other robots in the background start flipping out on the humans that they're being worked on by.
Oh, I forgot you were Gary the One. Glaven.
So Marge, Homer, and the kids have no idea this is happening, and Marge is pissed off at Homer. She's saying she has nothing to say to him, and Homer declares he is a political prisoner. I kicked a giant mouse in the butt. Do I have to draw you a diagram?
I would like to see that diagram, actually.
But right at this point, the power goes off all over the park, and Marge is just like, oh great, what now? And that's when we see a giant mob of robots walk out and start to march towards Homer, Marge, and the kids menacingly, with all of their axes and various weapons held high. And Homer, of course, doesn't pick up what's going on as he declares, hey, look, this one's coming on to me. Yoo-hoo, Mr. Robots.
Waving his little come hither handkerchief.
Come hither is the right way to put it. And that, my friends, is how we come to the end of our second act. We've only got a little bit to go, so we're just going to take a very short break, and we'll be right back.
And now it's time for our favorite part of the show. What's that say? Ads and sponsorship. Ugh, this is gonna be a real nightmare. Okay, what do you got for me? Patreon.com? What the hell is that? And they just give us money for it? Oh, if only we had that around in the 70s. Make sure you ask your mommies and daddies to send money to bestdarndiddly at patreon.com. So they can drive a dump truck full of money up to our houses. Uh-oh. I said the loud part quiet and the quiet part loud.
We come back from our break to find the Simpsons in the exact position we left them in. They are being surrounded by a horde of evil, malfunctioning robots, and they really don't know what to do. Lisa's trying to tell her dad, hey, Dad, I don't think they're coming on to you. I think they're trying to kill you. And we get what ends up being my favorite joke in this episode.
Lisa, don't contradict your elders. Ah! My hair! You chopped off my hair! Oh God, I'm ugly.
So this is all happening while Homer is dodging the blade swings of this robot, and everyone is a near miss until he gets the one that chops off all three of his beautiful head of hairs, and he, of course, freaks out about it. Marge is like, I told you we should have just gone to the bird sanctuary, and that's when we get what we talked about earlier. Mole Man is actually in the phone booth, and the birds are going absolutely crazy. It's a parody of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, and it's absolutely great just because Mole Man is always such a fun... He's like the biggest accident of the show that turned into one of the funniest side characters.
I need the biggest seed bell you have. No, that's too big.
What is too big? That's what I want to know. What size recommendation did the operator tell him? Was like, no. No.
Maybe Mole Man caused the birds to be there because it was part of his dastardly plan to take over Springfield.
The birds sensed the danger.
It went out of control. He flew too high.
And speaking of flying too high, the Simpsons come across their salvation from this horrible island of robots when they find a chopper. They're saved! Only...
Get to the chopper!
Only the chopper is filled with all of the employees who are dressed in the various costumes, and they recognize Homer and Bart as the people who have been beating on them all damn day. You're the guys that didn't like our capering! When you get to hell, tell 'em Itchy sent you. as he kicks them off the side of the helicopter.
Kick the child.
Yeah,
It's
they
Bart.
kick Bart.
It's Bart.
No matter how shitty a 10-year-old, I mean, you'd think you'd have to have enough compassion to save a 10-year-old, but Bart is quite the little bastard, after all. His kit or his fanny pack says so.
Oh my, it looks like we're doomed.
And Homer with another contender at top joke here. Back, you robots! Nobody ruins my family vacation but me! And maybe the boy!
I love that line.
Yeah, that's great. I kind of wish Bender were there, though, to go, doomed!
Homer is trying to fight off the robots with what he has on his person, but really all he has is he's throwing his wallet and pocket full of change and a banana. He pulls off his underwear in a very impressive manner and uses that too, but nothing works until he throws the camera, and when the flash goes off, it causes the robot to spaz out and collapse.
Dad, the Flash must have scrambled their circuits.
What are you, the narrator?
Yeah, just keep taking pictures.
I love that they call themselves out there with
Yeah,
that
that's
dialogue.
fantastic.
So, this is what I was talking about earlier. They clearly knew that cameras were a problem, yet they sold them in their gift shops, and Bart goes and breaks the glass with a mallet to get them out.
Smashy.
Since he's there, he goes ahead and smashes some more windows.
I also said smashy forever after the first time I saw this episode.
I say it every time I've got to break something out of force.
Yeah.
Just, all right, smashy.
So the Simpsons all arm themselves with cameras. They start snapping pictures, causing robots to go crazy. Bart at one point has a great line.
A mouse said cheese.
I love that. With a dry, cool
Perfect.
wit like that, I could be an action hero. And then almost immediately after, Homer says the exact same things.
Die, bad robots, die!
With a dry, cool wit like that, I could be an action hero.
Except for he doesn't completely finish the line.
Yeah, Bart cuts him off before he's in. Who would have thought that our visit to Itchy and Scratchy Land would turn out to be our best vacation ever?
Yeah, best ever!
Are you two bonkers? We almost got killed. Not to mention all the embarrassment I suffered.
But Mom, it's exactly what you wanted in a vacation. It brought us together as a family, we got a lot of good exercise outdoors, and we have so many memories.
You know what? You're right. This truly was the best vacation ever. Now let us never speak of it again.
I love that line so much that when I do my videos on YouTube where I'm walking around theme parks, that's how I tag it out now. This was the best vacation ever. Now let's never speak of it again.
That's great.
Wubba lubba dub dub.
So the best vacation ever was a bit rough, and Roger Myers Jr. is there to make amends. He says, as Roger Myers Jr., the owner of the park, I'd like to thank you for stopping the killer robots. And to show my appreciation, here are 2 free passes.
But there are 5 of us.
Here are the 2 free passes.
That's better. Which, wouldn't Roger Myers Jr. recognize at least Marge?
Yeah, they have a lot of history together.
That would be
right?
such bad press for him that, like, lady that disapproves of Itchy and Scratchy helps take down evil robots of Itchy and Scratchy.
Yeah, that's going to be all over the papers for quite some time. I love this final little joke. It's not the final joke, I guess. It's one of the last jokes we see. Dr. Frink is kneeling over one of the dead robots, and he declares,
Man, if this is happening here, I'd hate to think of what's happening in Euro Itchy and Scratchy Land. Bye.
we see an empty parking lot at Euro Disneyland, or Euro Itchy and Scratchy Land. There's absolutely not a car in the parking lot, and there's not a single person in line. And this is actually making fun of the opening of the real-life Euro Disneyland, where it didn't go as well as Disney had expected at first. They went through several years with very poor attendance, and it actually got to the point where they almost considered closing the park before they had a boom of sorts in popularity. We get this great moment where there's actually a French employee of Euro Itchy and Scratchy Land yelling out into the parking lot.
Hello! Itchy and Scratchy Land open for business! Who are you to resist, huh? Come on, my last paycheck bounced. My children need wine. Justice anonymous votos.
Great bit. Good job, Bob.
Well delivered.
That was
I love
awesome.
how. Thank you. I love how just on point this is because I did some reading on Euro Disney, and it opened in April of '92. By May of '92, 3,000 employees had walked off the job because of unsafe working conditions.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
Wow.
Yeah,
Robots
they
were
did
attacking
rebound eventually, but they're starting to level back off again. But this is after Disney has put 1.5 billion euros back into the park.
Oh.
Hope it's worth it, but it seems to have taken off, so I guess it was.
Yeah, they finally recovered. But at the beginning of the time, Disney didn't own the majority of the park. It was owned by 3 different companies, Disney being one of them. They now own about 98% of the park now.
Wow, I didn't realize that they didn't have 100%, to be honest. That's news to me. That's interesting. And that pretty much brings us to the end of our episode, for what it's worth. We do have the Simpsons reset to take care of. We're back at the Simpsons home. The children are watching Itchy and Scratchy, and this time Marge is watching along with them. She says, "I hope you realize now that violence on TV may be funny, but it's not so funny when that violence is happening to you."
But it would be funny to someone who was watching us. No, Mom, he's right. Observe.
Lisa throws her shoe at Bart, and Marge laughs out loud, and laughs hard for a few seconds.
She couldn't control it.
She couldn't control it before she tried to compose herself and says, "Oh my, Lisa, go to your room."
Aww.
And that brings us to the end of Itchy and Scratchy Land. Bob, is there anything else that you'd like to point out about this episode?
Yeah, you know what? There was one shot. We mentioned the particular shot at the beginning of the episode, or near the beginning, where Lisa and Bart's face are looking directly up at Marge into the camera. But there was another moment of animation that always caught my attention, whether it was the first time or the 150th time I saw it. After the parents, Bart pulls the "I'm dead serious" thing, and the parents say, "Okay, we are going to Itchy and Scratchy Land." Bart and Lisa stare at each other for probably a good 2 seconds of dead silence. And in TV terms, 2 seconds is a long time. And I was noticing, it was like, what is the point of this shot? They just...
To show how excited they are.
It just seemed really odd. I mean, maybe they needed to fill 2 seconds of time. Well, there you go. Just have them stare at each other for a moment.
That's not unheard of. They do sometimes extend those shots in a frozen state like that for that very reason. They've talked about that on the commentary before, though they didn't mention it specifically on this one.
I was interested about that one, because that one I've always seemed to notice for some reason.
I could see that. It is just a bit long. Richie, what about you or that book of yours? Anything else you'd like to point out about Itchy and Scratchy Land?
My book, The Simpsons: A Complete Guide to Our Favorite Family, did want to point out that the rides that were closed at Itchy and Scratchy Land included Head Basher, Bloodbath, Mangler, and last and least important, Nurse's Station.
The best ride.
That's fantastic. I missed that. I'm not going to lie. That's funny.
Did you notice the Euro Itchy and Scratchy Land above the ticket attendant? They had the same... I actually had to decipher this from French. The Pulverizer, the Bleeding, the Massacre, and Nurse's Post were not open that day.
That's continuity right there, folks. But other than that, the other thing the guide wanted to point out was that during the parade, there was a sign in the background that said, "Penny Arcade, all games 75 cents.
That's inflation right there.
That's
half price
Disney.
on the tickets, 75% increase on everything else. I don't know what 75 goes to in that. But other than that, I mean, let's be honest. This is a fan favorite episode for many good reasons. I will say I've seen this episode a lot over my life, and it definitely holds up, but it wasn't as grand as I thought it was going to be rewatching it, and I think I might have built it up too much, but it's still probably going to be... I mean, we know it'll at least be in the top 10 for the season.
Yeah, I would slightly agree with you that I think that my hype was a little bit of a factor in that it didn't necessarily live up to how great, though it's still fantastic and will be a contender. But I agree. I think it always comes down to that expectation thing we've talked about. Other than that, I do want to say one more thing, though. I did tease it at the beginning of the podcast. There was some controversy with the censors on this one, specifically that at this time in the 90s, the government was starting to crack down. There was a bunch of lobbyists who were really going after violence in television, especially in cartoon violence. And even though they haven't had a single complaint, Fox had decided that they were no longer going to allow Itchy and Scratchy at all anymore. Now, mind you, this was already when this episode was in development, so this wasn't an answer to that. They were already planning this episode, but David Merkin responded. David Merkin responded saying, "That's ridiculous. We're not going to get rid of Itchy and Scratchy. Let us see those complaints." When Fox responded, "We haven't received any complaints. We're just changing our standards," Merkin replied, "Well, we haven't changed ours. In fact, we're planning an Itchy and Scratchy Land episode." Now, admittedly, they did have to cut down the violence slightly in that opening cartoon with all the pinpricks and the blood, but with the exception of minor cuts in that little section, they actually were able to deliver this episode completely as they wanted to. So overall, you have to call it a win. And I just think it's hilarious that they always tend to get into it with Fox and they always stand their ground, and it seems so far they always win.
I love Dave Merkin.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for this episode of the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. We need to take a moment and say a big thank you to Bob from the Nerd or Not podcast, part of the Cretins Guild, for joining us today. Man, we've been looking forward to having you on the show for quite some time, and I hope you had as much fun as I think both of us did. I'm going to say for Richie and myself, I had a blast talking with you today, and it was a lot of fun hearing your insight. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. I am so happy to be on this podcast that you've had, such high-name stellar guest on, and then just some theme park nerd, basically.
You were the right choice for this episode, man. I honestly can't think of anybody else who would have fit any better.
Well, thank you. I am, most of all, I am a fan of this podcast. As soon as you guys upload on Sundays, I download it. I listen on my drive to and from work, which means I normally knock out one episode in a single day.
Well, we appreciate you tuning in and downloading, man. That means a lot to us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm a fan first and like a brother second, like I said.
Well, brother, tell us about your podcast and tell us where everybody can find you online, where they can tune into the Nerd or Not podcast. Tell them all your stuff.
The Nerd or Not podcast can be found on Podbean, iTunes, and Google Play. You can also find us, the Cretins Guild, on Twitter, Instagram, and also YouTube, where I make a number of videos where we display video cam versions of our podcast, and videos where I walk around some of the theme parks in the Orlando area, on top of like some other subjects. I did one last year that got really popular, and I'm going to make a sequel to it this summer. Of strange trophies in college football rivalries.
Nice.
That's a fun twist.
We got one called the Iron Skillet.
Yeah, I made a mention of that one in the first video. I didn't go into detail of that, but that's probably going to be in the next episode.
Sounds fantastic.
Well, this one is getting long, so we're going to do this last bit quick. Follow Richie at theWiz_kid23. Follow me at MrMostDaysOff. And more importantly, follow our show. That's at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY. That is going to work pretty much everywhere there's social media. Other than that, we just want to thank each and every one of you, just like we thank Bob for tuning in each and every week and joining us. That's what really means a lot to us, is the fact that you guys want to join us for this journey. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate that. The WizKid and I are going to be back again next week, and so is Sideshow Bob. We're going to be talking about the episode Sideshow Bob Roberts.
Yeah.
Nice. And remember, everyone, when you get to hell, tell them Best Darn Diddly sent you.
Until next time, be cromulent to each other.
Rising from the depths of a state called Michigan, two inebriated dorks prepare their plan for intergalactic domination. mixing their extensive knowledge of geek culture with their insatiable thirst for alcohol. These two man-children bring you a show like you've never heard before. They will tell you tales from faraway lands and have you questioning their taste in beer. But make no mistake, friend, for the best coverage of your favorite comics, films, and TV shows, there's no better source for you to get your fix. So listen up, strap in, and prepare yourself as Jake and Tom conquer the world.